Okay, good morning, classmates and Doc Melo. I will be discussing data performance and application and system performance. So, meron po akong policy. Ayan, so, report is policy. Turned on, come during my report. Pakitay lang po ng cam. Para, para ako lang yung nakatago. Charot. Tapos, mute your mic unless you will add insights to my report or discussion and ask to read something. So, magiging interactive po tayo ha. Kasi hindi po ako masyadong mahihirapan po ako mag-read. So, kayo po yung ipaparead ko. Okay lang po ba?
Okay lang po.
Sige po. Enjoy and happy learning. So, ito po yung topic na i-discuss. Defining what is performance, factors that influence data performance roadmap, monitoring versus management, and types of performance tuning. So, isa pa lang po yan. Meron pang dalawa. Isang topic pa lang po yan. So, kindly read po yung first na topic. Ate Don. Ate Don.
Yes, sure. Wait lang. Wait lang pa.
Aba, sige po.
Morning. So what is database performance? Performance is reactive. Supply and demand concept. Users request information from database. The DBMS supplies information to those requesting it. Database performance, the rate at which DBMS supplies the demand for information.
Okay po. Yung database performance po, reactive po siya. So, meaning, nagre-react po yung pinaka-computer nyo dun sa ano. So, paano po siya naging proactive? Kuya Daddy. Kuya Daddy.
Proactive?
Kasi
Hello?
po reactive po siya, di ba?
Reactive.
Opo, paano po siya naging proactive? Kuya.
Proactive siya kasi bago siya mangyari, naisip na niya, parang ganun.
Opo. Bago po siya mangyari, planned maintenance po tawag doon. So, then, 5 factors po that influence data performance. So, meron pong 5. Workload, throughput ba yun? Resources, optimization, and consumption. So, isa-isahin po natin yan. Pakiread po nung unang slide po. Laika po.
Hi, hello po.
Opo.
5 factors, workload, a combination of online transactions, batch jobs, ad hoc queries, data warehousing, analysis, and system commands directed through the system at any given time. Workload can fluctuate drastically from day to day, hour to hour, and even minute to minute.
Okay po,
Through,
tuwad.
okay po. Hindi po.
Tuwad po dun sa workload. Sorry po. Sometimes workload can be predict predicted yung mga heavy month-end processing or payroll or very light after 7 p.m. Kasi po wala nang ano nun, wala nang work. So nakakapahinga po siya. And the overall workload can have a major impact on database performance. So yun po. Throughput naman po, Ate Ginger, andyan ka na ba?
Yes. Alin yung babasahin ko, sis? Throughput?
Throughput.
Alright. Teka, alam niyo naman malabo mata ko. Okay. Hindi mo na ako mag-video on kasi baka buong mukha ko yung lumabas. Throughput defines the overall capability of the computer to process data. It is a composite of I/O speed, CPU speed, and parallel capabilities of the machine, and the efficiency of the operating system and system software.
Okay. To add po, don't just base your throughput assumption on hardware capability figures such as megahertz for Wintel boxes and MSU and MIPs for mainframe. Perhaps you have installed or heard or soft keeping on your box. Next po, um, Grace. Grace, andyan ka ba?
Yes. Okay.
Pare.
Babasahin ko, no?
Opo.
Okay. 5 factors, resources, the hardware and software tools at the disposal of the system. Optimization, all types of systems can be optimized, but relational databases are unique in that query optimization is primarily accomplished internal to the DBMS.
Okay, so resources po muna tayo. Yung resources po, may examples po yan. Like memory, buffer pools, or address spaces, disk, cache controller, and microcode. So, yun po. And the last po is Sir Chris, andyan ka po po.
Hello, okay po. Sorry. Chris po ba, sabi mo?
Apo.
Ayan, so contention. So, the condition where, sorry, hindi ko mabasa. The condition where two or more components of the workload are attempting to use a single resource in a conflicting way. For example, dual updates to the same piece of data. As contention increases, throughput decreases.
Okay po. Yun po yung contention versus throughput. ayun po, naghihigitan po yung dalawa. Um, dito na po tayo sa data performance roadmap. Sino pa po hindi nakakarinig? Dan, Dan, andun ka.
Hello. Hello, yes. And database performance roadmap 80-20 rule. Following the 80-20 rule, the first step should be to identify the most troublesome areas.
Meron pa dyan na.
Okay. The 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, is an old maxim stating that 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. This rule is usually applicable to most efforts, whether the percentages are precisely 80% and 20%. The underlying logic of the rule holds, namely, that the small amount of effort brings the most rewards. So, from the perspective of database performance tuning, the wise DBA will concentrate on the most likely causes of performance problems first, because he will receive a high returns on his tuning investment.
Okay po. Thank you. Rachel, andyan ka po ba? Rachel.
Nag-leave si Gracel.
Ah,
Pinabasa nyo, nag-left tuloy.
sorry naman.
Yes, Rock. Sorry. Hindi ko na
Sabi namin, nag-left ka kasi pinapabasa ka. Joke lang.
Rocks kasi. Joke lang. Sige, ano mga atin, Rocks? Database Performance Roadmap.
Oh.
Um, a poorly performing SQL includes table scans, lack of appropriate indexes, improper indexing choices, not using the available indices, and then outdated database statistics. Another is the tables joined in a optimal order, and application joins instead of usually more efficient SQL joins. Improper join method like nested loop, merge, scan, and etc. Efficient SQL inside of inefficient application code or loops, and inefficient subquery formulation such as exist, not exist, and etc. And then unnecessary sorting like group by, order by, and union.
Question po. Sa mga nakikita niyo po, alin po yung na-encounter nila sa mga programmer po?
Usually, itong, sa akin ba ulit yan, Rax?
Yes. Yes po. Hello? Ayan, nag-left na naman.
Nawala ulit.
Sa akin ba ulit yan?
Yes po. Kasi, programmer yun.
Usually, ito talagang not using available indices, but it is not always appropriate. Minsan, meron design na hindi necessary na madaming indices kasi mas bumabagal.
Mhm.
Pero on MySQL, yung straightforward lang na design, yung hindi naman ganun ka-complex, indices always helps. Tapos, yung ating improper join method, yan. Yung
Opo.
nested loop, merge scan. Pag sobrang laki, yan, we should, i-optimize.
Correct.
And then, ito rin, unnecessary sorting.
Mhm.
Yan. Group by, order by union. Minsan, it is better to use other syntax like yung intersect, tsaka ano pa isa, para para ma-sort out agad yung ating listings. So, yun lang based on experience, Rax.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
So, in addition, Rax, in
Apo.
addition, uh, for us not to encounter this poorly performing SQL, we need always to use the start by checking your weight start, yung pinaka-weight stats, no?
Apo.
Most commonly, when it comes to databases, no? We need to ensure that our yung tempdb database is configured optimally. Kasi yun yung common problem sa poorly ano natin. Uh, Actually, it is repeat offender when it comes to performance bottlenecks eh. So, isa yon. Then another thing is make sure you're running index maintenance frequently. Kasi this should include updating statistics no, of your databases. If you don't have an index maintenance plan, you could able to use another tool like SQL Server Maintenance Solution. Okay? Another thing that we need to consider for us not to encounter this problem or this poor performance, we need to implement indexes that provide a benefit to your queries. No, this involve creating missing indexes and removing poor performing or unutilized indexes because having a large number of indexes can be determined to DML transaction. And we need to take note that appropriate indexing means only creating indexes which have a positive impact to your read performance that outweigh the negative impact on write performance, which requires a good understanding of your workload. And another thing, of course, kasi it's too important, that's why I gave you some inputs. No? We have a code already, of course, with regards to this. Another thing is you need to check your most expensive queries and stored procedures. No, you need to identify actually which queries and stored procs have the most input output or system CPU usage are taking the longest to run and see if there's room for improvement. Start by working on those that will give you the best performance improvement for the least amount of effort. And there aren't many of us who enjoy this, and it's not always possible, but it's certainly worth a check. So, kailangan nyo. And of course, another thing, monitor your performance counters. No? Even if you manage to solve your immediate issue by following the steps, no? We have a lot of steps, procedures, still recommended to monitor your performance counter to isolate the deeper issues. And of course, doing this in a regular basis will ensure you to have a targeted performance tuning approach and will help you spot issues before they escalate. Monitoring your counters when your environment is healthy will give you a good baseline as a database administrator. Okay, go ahead.
Um, the proper coding and tuning of this of SQL statement is a detailed endeavor. So, yun po yung isa. And, pakiread po ulit. Um, sino pa pa hindi nakakarin? Wala na.
Sige, volunteer na lang, class volunteer.
Ako, volunteer ako.
Sige po.
Alright. Some items should be checked in order to know the overall performance of the database instance and server OS. Memory allocation, buffer cache for data, SQL authorization. Logging options, log cache, log size, Oracle, rollback segments. Bias ka sa Oracle sis. IO efficiency, separation of tables and indexes on disk, database size, fragmented and extended files, overall application, and database workload on the server. database schema definitions. Salamat po.
Okay, Rax, I have add-on. It is very important to us as administrator, as a system administrator rather, or a database administrator, to always find out how many data already stored in our database on our server. Most commonly, for example, that's why we consider to use a more sophisticated databases like Oracle. Now, because, for example, previously, you design your database, just you targeted for 1,000, for example, for 1,000 employees and data. But time will come na it is not, ano na, parang hindi na siya kakasya. So therefore, by monitoring the memory allocation, so we could possible to have an additional, no? If in case na hindi na kaya. That's why at present, majority of a company are now using the cloud. And sabi nila mas makakatipid, ayaw ko kung sino nasa industry, kung naggagamit na lang tayo ng third party rather than to maintain our own.
Yes.
Pero pag sobrang laki na ng company mo, better for you to have your own na talaga eh.
Mm.
Di ba? Okay, sige, go ahead. Kasi nakita nyo dyan, overall application, di ba? Sige, overload. Ano? Overall application and database workload on the server. Database schema and definitions. Because there are certain cases, we deleted some field. We deleted some records. But of course, we need to take note that even we deleted everything, we need to permanently delete it. Maybe we deleted already with this databases, but it's still linked with other database. So we need to review actually, no, every now and then as database administrator. Sige, Rax, go ahead.
So, dito na tayo sa management versus monitoring. So, performance management consists of three specific components that need to be performed in conjunction with each other. So, monitoring, analysis, and correction. So, meron po tayong figure. Yan po. Kapag po monitoring lang, i-identify mo lang yung problem, tapos wala ka nang gagawin. Kapag management po, you analyze it, the problem, and you fix it. Like, yun po. So, yun po. Pakibasa po ulit.
Okay, Rox. Okay na lang.
Opo.
Okay, reactive database performance will always be required because unplanned performance problems will always occur. So it is impossible to foresee every type of performance problem. After all, some systems and applications change over time.
Ito po yung sinasabi reactive versus proactive. So, dito naman po tayo sa proactive. Kuya Dodge. Kuya Dodge.
Oh, wait. Proactive, combine forethought, planning, and automation to minimize reactive monitoring and tuning. In other words, proactive performance management reduce the amount, time, effort, and human error involved in implementing and maintaining efficient database system.
Okay po. May i-add po ba? Wala po.
Ahead lang, go ahead. Later na ulit ako magsa-summarize.
Sige po. Types of performance tuning. So, meron tayong tatlo. Um, tatlong performance tuning po yan. Um, meron po tayong system tuning, database tuning, tsaka application tuning. So, para din po yung performance, may database, may system, tsaka may application, tsaka may forever po sila.
Ayan, may forever talaga.
Apo, may forever. Pakibasa po.
Hi, Rax.
Apo,
For
Ate
the,
Dor.
yes,
Sige po.
for the system tuning occurs at the highest level and has the greatest impact on the overall health of database applications because every application depends on the system. Then database tuning performance can be impacted by the physical design of the database, including normalization, disk storage, number of tables, index design, and use of DDL and its associated parameters. Application tuning, the application itself must be designed appropriately and monitored for efficiency. Most experts agree that as much as 75% of performance problems are caused by improperly coded applications. SQL is the primary culprit. Coding efficient SQL statements can be complicated. Developers need to be taught how to properly formulate, monitor, and tune SQL statements.
Di po. So, sa system tuning po, the database can and must be tuned to assure optimum performance. Um, pakinig po. Pakinig po. Sige po ba yun?
Sige sis, i-message ko na lang si Grace, ha? Baka hindi na napapansin eh.
Na-miss ko na po.
Okay.
So, system tuning po ay ang DBMS po can and must be tuned to assure optimum performance. Sa database tuning naman po, the physical location of database files impacts the performance of application accessing the data. Ayan. Rules na po tayo.
Rax, wait.
Opo.
Okay, so again, for us to monitor the performance or fine-tuning, of course, no? The SQL performance tuning consists of making queries of a relation database runs as fast as possible. So, sabi ko nga, di ba, we have different databases. So, most commonly, the most important things that we need to consider, of course, is to generate an actual execution plan. Kasi yun ang mahalaga sa pag-tune ng database. You need to generate an actual execution plan. Of course, for us to, in order to diagnose slow queries, it's crucial to be able to generate graphical execution plans, which you can do by using SQL Server Management Studio. Actual execution plans are generated after the queries run. Okay, so mahalaga yon. Another thing that we need is, of course, is monitor resource usage. Because resource usage is an essential factor when it comes to SQL database performance. And since you can improve what you don't measure, you definitely should monitor resource usage. Okay? So paano ba 'yon? So if you are using Windows, using the System Monitor tool to measure the performance of SQL Server, it enables you to view SQL Server objects, performance counters, and the behavior, of course, of the objects. In using System Monitor, kapag Windows ang gamit natin, no, it allows you to monitor Windows and SQL Server counters simultaneously, actually. So, so that you can verify if there's any correlation between the performance of the two. Another thing is use the database engine tuning advisor. Okay? Another important technique actually for SQL performance tuning is to analyze the performance of transact-SQL statements that are run against the database you intend to tune. And you can use the database engine tuning advisor to analyze the performance implication. But the tool goes beyond that. It also recommends action you should take based on its analysis. So for instance, it might advise you to create or remove indexes. Another thing, find slow queries with SQL DMVs. Ano ba yung DMVs? Dynamic Management Views. Okay? This will be the one of the greatest features of SQL Server, yung DMVs that are built into it. There are dozens of them that they can provide a wealth of information about a wide range of topics. There are several DMVs that provide data about query stats, execution plans, recent queries, and much more. And this can be used together to provide some amazing insights. So, example, the query, of course, can be used, find the queries that use the most reads, writes, worker time on our central processing unit. And the last one is query reporting via APM solutions. Ano naman, Doc, yung APM solutions? That is Application Performance Management Tool. It is the ability to track SQL queries. So, for example, try to use the word, the command retrace. Retrace tracks SQL queries across multiple database providers, including, of course, the SQL Server. Because retrace tells you how many times a query was executed, how long it takes on average, and what transaction called it. This is the valuable information for SQL performance tuning. APM or Application Performance Management Solutions collect this data by doing lightweight performance profiling against your application code at runtime. Okay? Sige, go ahead, Rax. Okay. Before I forget, another thing that we need also to consider is the SQL Server Extended Events. Yun yung tinatawag nating the SQL Server Profiler. Okay? It was around for a very long time. It was very useful tool to see in real time what SQL queries are being executed against your database, but it's currently deprecated. Microsoft replaced it with SQL Server Extended events. Before SQL Server Profiler. Ang Microsoft ni-replace niya ito in SQL Server Extended Events. And this is sure to anger a lot of people, but I can understand that Microsoft is doing it. Extended event works via event tracing. This has been the common way for all Microsoft-related technologies to expose diagnostic data, because the event tracing, okay, provide much more flexibility. And as of course, if you are a developer or a database guru, di ba? May mga talaga, database talaga ang nila, specialty. It could easily tap into the, of course, extended event tracing from SQL Server to collect data for custom users. And that's really cool, of course, and really powerful. Okay? Sige. Meron din tayong yung bago ngayon, Raquel, pala nalimutan ko. Yung SQL Assure. Meron palang SQL Assure Query Performance Insights na. Meron din yan. Yan yung pinaka-latest ngayon.
Assure.
Okay? Assure. So, maybe next time, if you need to do some performance tuning with SQL Server, you'll have a few options at your disposal to consider. Odds are that you'll use more than one of these tools depending on what you are trying to accomplish. So if you are using the APM solution, like Retrace, be sure to check what kind of SQL performance functionality it has built in. Kasi iba't ibang database, iba't ibang tools, iba't ibang ginagamit natin. So, try to check ano bang hinahanap natin. If you want to improve your code with Retrace APM, syempre, andyan yung APM performance management, code profiling, error tracking, centralized logging, app and server metrics. Okay? Sige, continue, Raquel.
Um, there are rules in achieving database management system related performance goals. So, hindi ko na po ito, yan, ah, parang ipapashbay na lang po natin to. So, do not, do not oversoon, remain focus, um, do not panic, communication is important, so communicate clearly and accept reality. So, dito na po tayo sa optimizing database techniques. So, pakiread po ng article. Ito po. Okay.
Sige
Sige,
sis,
go
ako na
ahead.
lang. Ako na lang. Hold on. Optimizing database techniques. First, partitioning. Bear with me lang, ang ganda ng kulay na napili ni Sis. Breaking a
Tama rin
single
naman.
database table into sections stored in multiple files. Indexing, choosing the proper indexes and options to enable efficient queries. Raw partitions versus file systems. Choosing whether to store database data in an OS controlled file or not. Denormalization, varying from the logical design to achieve better query performance. Yun po.
Pakibasa, Grace, andun ka.
Ako ba, Rax?
Yes po.
Okay. Optimizing database techniques, clustering, enforcing the physical sequence of data on disk, interleaving data, combining data from multiple tables into a single sequenced file, free space, leaving room for data growth, compression, algorithmically reducing storage requirements.
So, the last one po for the topic.
File placement and allocation, putting the right files in the right place. Page size, using the proper size for efficient data storage and I/O. Reorganization, removing inefficiencies from the database by realigning and restructuring database objects.
Okay po.
Okay.
So, na-encounter ko po yung partitioning sa paggagawa ko ng program. And yung indexing. So, yun po. May naman pa po tayong sa unahan. Meron po tayong dalawa pang topic. Mabilis lang po to. Promise.
Go
Okay,
lang, Rax. Go lang.
habang nag-setup ka.
Go lang,
Ah,
Rax.
sige, Rax, habang nag-setup ka.
Apa,
Database optimization involves maximizing the speed and efficiency. Yun ang main focus ng database optimization. Okay, to maximize the speed and efficiency, with which data is retrieved. Most commonly, the database designer, administrator, and analyst work together to optimize system performance through different or diverse methods. Okay? Para lang ano natin, ano ba yung database optimization? It more focus on speed and efficiency sa pag-retrieve natin ng data. Okay? So, sinong gumagawa nun? Database designer, administrator, and analysts. Sige, Rax. Umi-epa lang ako kay Rax, ha? Umi-epa lang ako kay Rax, ha?
Sige po, okay lang po. Ito na po.
Yes po.
Okay, nakita na.
So, yung second topic ko po ay application performance.
Ano
So,
yung nakaharang? Nakaharang ba yan?
ito po.
Oo, audience window.
Yan. Okay na po.
Okay na. Okay.
Sorry po. So, ang didiscuss ko po ay ayan, ang date. Design issues that affect application performance, relational optimization, database statistics, and query analysis. So, konti lang po itong slide. 11 lang. Tapos meron pa isa. Ayan.
Dapat, Rax, isang topic lang kinuha mo.
Opo nga.
Pero sobrang sipag mo. Dapat isa lang topic kinuha mo. Sige, sige, nandiyan na. Go ahead. Sipag mo talaga.
So, design issues that affect application performance. So, yung type of SQL, hindi niyo po nababasa, no?
Okay lang, Rax.
Basa naman po.
Pakibasa po.
Sige, ako na.
Salamat po.
Type, bear with me lang, kailangan ko kasi i-maximize. Type of SQL is the correct type of SQL, planned or unplanned, dynamic or static, embedded or standalone. Question pala to, being used for this particular application. Programming language is the programming language capable of achieving the required performance and is the language environment optimized for database access. Last, transaction design and processing. Hold on. Are the transactions within the program properly designed to assure ACID properties? Sorry, hindi ako familiar dyan sa ACID properties. And does the program use the transaction processor of choice appropriately and efficiently? These are the design issues that affect application performance. Salamat po.
Thank you po. So, nakaka-apekto po ng malaki yung type of SQL na ginagamit, programming language, tsaka po transaction design and application. So, ayan po yung mga questions na dapat nyo itanong sa mga sarili nyo kung kayo po ay database administrator. Like, Sir Chris, andun ka po ba?
Si Miss Laika hindi mo tinatawa.
O sige, si Miss Laika na lang.
Ah, hello po. Kanya pa yata siya. Hi lang po. Sige po. Locking strategy. Does the application hold the wrong type of locks or does it hold the correct type of locks for too long? Good morning po. Commit strategy. Does each application program issue SQL commit statements to minimize the impact of locking? Batch processing are batch programs designed appropriately to take advantage of the sequential processing features of the DBMS. Online processing are online applications designed to return useful information and to minimize the amount of information returned to the user screen for a single invocation of the program. Thank you po.
Sorry po, Miss Laika. Hindi ko po kayo na ano.
Ano po?
Next po, Sir Chris. Kuya Dodge, andyan ka?
Nandito po. Hello? Rinig po? Rinig?
Opo.
Ayan. Relational optimization. Optimizer, the heart of a relational database management system. An inference engine responsible in the determination of the best possible database navigation strategy for any given SQL request. Relational optimization. To optimize SQL, the relational optimizer must analyze each SQL statement by parsing it to determine the table and column that must be accessed. The optimizer will also access statistics stored by the RDBMS in either the system catalog of the database object themselves. The statistics are used to determine the best method of accomplishing the tasks that need to be performed to satisfy the SQL request. This process is called relational optimization.
So, question po. Ano po yung pagkakaiba ng relational database management system sa database management system lang? Ano po yung pagkakaiba nila? Wala po. Hello po. Sige pa, hindi lang.
No idea.
Hang up.
Hello?
Hello po.
Ayan si
Hello, okay. Kapag sinabi kasi nating relational database, collection nyo ng information na naka-organize. Organize siya. Unlike do sa regular, come what may, gusto kong gawin to ngayon, bukas ibang database na naman sa kabila, yung regular databases. Kapag relational, syempre ano na yan, organize. Syempre, pag sinabi natin relational database, database pa rin yon na nag-i-stored ng stored and provides access to data that points are related to another. Diba? Kapag relational databases, it's throw in the table column with records with a unique ID called the key. Ay, mga primary key, may mga and so on and so forth. So yun yung ano ng relational databases. Mas organized na siya pag naka-relational na siya. Especially kung naka-form 1, naka-form third form, second form, it depends, no? Yun po yun. Raquel, may tanong? Ay, naka-mute ba ako? Hindi naman. Narinig nyo ba?
Opo.
Yeah. Yes po. Yes, Doc.
Oo. So, ang kapag relational at saka non-relational databases naman, kapag relational, di ba? I don't know kung familiar kayo sa NoSQL database. No?
Opo.
Meron tayong tinatawag na relational databases. So, pero most commonly, ano ba ang gamit na database ngayon na maganda raw? MongoDB?
Mongo.
Hindi kasi ako database But most commonly, pati sa database schema, the same lang naman yun, no?
Ah,
Okay. Sige, go ahead. Mamaya, mag-ano ulit ako mamaya, mag-add.
apa.
Ginugulat tayo ni Raquel bigla eh.
Ay, sorry naman. Nanggugulat ba ako? So, so kita niyo po yung pinaka ano ng optimization ng relational. Kita niyo po yung figure.
I-zoom na lang po.
Ay, sorry po. So, meron dyan, run SQL, yes or no. So, kapag nirun siya, nag-execute siya ng optimize SQL. Kita niyo po.
Yes po.
Tapos
Yes
po,
po.
kapag po nag-run, meron po siyang ilang process, dalawa. Dalawa pong process yan na isa po yung execute the optimize SQL, saka po yung isa po ay determine optimal access. So, yun po. Pabasa po. Ulit.
Sige, ako na. Database statistics. Saglit. Database statistics provide the optimizer with information about the state of the table spaces, tables, columns, and indexes. The DBMS collects statistical information such as number of rows and table space, table and index, number of unique values stored in the column, most frequently occurring values for columns, index key density, details on the ratio of clustering for clustered tables, correlation of columns to other columns, structural state of the index or table space, amount of storage used by the database object.
Magko-question pa ba ako na?
Okay lang, Rox.
Okay. So, alin din yung pinaka-importante sa palagay mo? Sa mga kinokolekta na statistical information, alin dyan yung pinaka-importante? O lahat ba importante?
Yung field na heavily used.
Mhm.
Basta anything to do with usage.
Mhm.
Yun po.
And anyone
Actually,
else?
all of those things are important, no?
Up,
But what we need always to consider is the amount of storage, no?
up,
Because of course, if you are a database designer, you need to consider everything, no? These things, no? But of course, in database designing, you need always to consider the amount of storage to be used. Mahalaga yon. Halimbawa, nagawa ka na ng number of rows o ilang database objects ang gagamitin mo doon, so lahat i-consider siya. Pero lahat ito syempre important for statistical information.
up.
Okay.
Sige po, Doc. Ang dami kong tanong, ah. Huwag na ka mag-report.
Go lang, Rax.
Ang dami kong tanong, eh. So, yung query analysis po, definition and aspect. So, yung definition po niya, makikibasa po. Basa
Kay
ako.
Rax. Ay, sino ba? Sorry.
Sige, ikaw na ate doon.
Okay. Definition, the query analysis scans the SQL statement to determine its overall complexity. The formulation of the SQL statement is a significant factor in determining the access paths chosen by the optimizer. The complexity of the query, the number and type of predicates, the presence of functions, and the presence of ordering clauses enter into the estimated cost that is calculated by the optimizer. Aspects of SQL statement and database system that the optimizer analyze. Which tables in which database are required, whether any views are required to be broken down into underlying tables, whether table joins or subselects are required, which indexes, if any, can be used, how many predicates where clauses must be satisfied, which functions must be executed, whether the SQL uses and how the DBMS processes each component of the SQL statement, how much memory has been assigned to the data cache used by the tables in the SQL statement, and how much memory is available for sorting if the query requires a sort.
Ayan po mga questions na yan. Ayan po yung tatanong kung yan yung query analysis. So, ano, ito na naman tayo sa tanong. Napalayan niyo po, ano po yung importante dyan? Lahat ba importante na questions? May specific na question.
Depende siguro
Aba, depende sa
sa gagawin.
kukuhain.
Mhm.
Sa kukuhain information po. Depende po sa kukuhain information. Yung questions.
Mm. Sa
Okay
akin
po.
depende. Ayaw ko lang sa iba.
Um, so, ito po yung end ng report ko sa application performance. So, meron pang isa. Sorry po. Ipapabasa ko na lang po sa inyo ulit. Okay lang po ba?
Volunteer na, volunteer.
Okay lang, Rox.
Okay. Sige, ako nababasa, Rax.
Opo, wait lang po. Wait lang po.
Okay.
Naka-present na po, di ba?
Ito ba yung query analysis?
Wala pa sis.
Wala pa.
Yun yung nakikita sa screen.
Sorry. Sorry po. Hindi ko kasi nakikita yung screen ko eh. Okay na po? Ano po nakikita niyo?
Okay na, system performance.
Opo.
Performance ko.
Ayan po.
Ayan, babasahin. A system problem can cause all databases and applications to perform poorly.
Um, dito po the system comprises of the hardware and software required for the DBMS to operate. So, ang system po ay, ang computer system po ay hardware and software. So, pag po nagka-problema yan, magkaka-affect po yung performance ng database and application na ginawa ninyo. So, kailangan nyo pong pag-aralan yung ito-test nyo na computer o computer specs po bago kayo mag-ano ng database management system. That's po. Grisel, ikaw na ulit. Okay lang.
Alright, a DBMS operates within the context of a larger environment.
Ano po ba yung larger environment na tinatawag? Ito po yung other software and hardware components. Kasi po, hindi naman po lahat DBMS lang yung focus. Klaro po ba?
Yes po.
Apa. So the DBA or database administrator needs to understand how the database interacts with the um, um, server hardware, the operating system, and other required software. Next questions lang naman. Okay. Grace?
Yes. Babasahin ko.
Yes po.
By interaction with operating system, questions to be asked to ensure our OS suits for DBMS. Has a sufficient amount of memory been allocated for operating tasks? Most operating systems have the capability of allocating a specific amount of disk space as a swap area. The swap area is used when the OS runs out of memory. Has a sufficient amount of disk space been allocated to the swap area? So how were the database files allocated when the database was implemented? Interaction with the file system can cause some operating systems to create additional overhead by changing the database files to use raw disk. OS and file system overhead can be eliminated.
Okay. In addition po, when the operating system experience performance problem, all of the software that run na nakaka-apekto po yung operating system kasi um good, good po yung basis niya eh. So to help ensure an optimal operating system, the DBA should ask the following questions. So, yung pong niread ni Grace kanina, yun po yung mga questions na yun. And meron pang iba. Ayan. Miss Laika, andun ka po ba?
Yes po, hello po.
Apo.
Okay. Okay po. Interactions with operating system. Questions to be asked to ensure your OS suits for your DBMS. Some operating systems allow the administrator to set the priority of tasks that run under the auspices of the OS. Has each database-related task been assigned a priority? Is the priority appropriate for that specific task? Is the operating system at the version and release level recommended by the DBMS vendor? Have any bug fixes been shipped for the OS that are applicable for the particular brand of database server you are running? Have the operating system configuration parameters been modified when installing the DBMS? If so, has sufficient testing been done to ensure that the parameters were modified correctly and do not impact any other processes that run on the database server? Thank you po.
Thank you po. So, ayan po yung mga tanong ng DBA. So, yun po. Next po ng topic is allied agent. So, parin po muna. Dandre, andun ka ba? Dandre.
Hello, hello. Okay. Allied agents. The DBMS has to ally itself with many other software components to deliver service to the end user. Uh, Transaction processors like CI SOPs, transaction server, web connectivity and development software such as Cold Fusion, networking software, TCP, IP, and SNA, programming languages such as PHP and Java, messaging queuing software such as MS Queries and MSMQ.
Okay. So, question po ulit. Mahilig akong magtanong eh. Sorry naman.
Okay lang, Rox.
Alin po dyan yung nagamit nila pang na, na makakatulong po sa database management system niya. Alin po yung nagamit nila dyan? Pero yung programming language. Kasi given na yun eh. Nakagamit po pa kayo ng networking software, message queue,
Mga programmers.
Grisel.
Yep.
ikaw, ikaw kasi programmer, saka ako. So,
Okay.
alin dyan yung nagamit mo na?
Okay. Sabi dito the DBMS has ally itself. Transactional processors like CIS, Microsoft Web Connectivity and Development Software. Hindi rin. Network software such as TCP, IP,
Ah,
basic. Tapos, yeah, ito programming languages
mm,
na PHP, Java, and then message queuing software, hindi. Siguro may certain features ng applications ito applicable but yung ginagawa namin ngayon na project is not this will be not this wouldn't be relevant pero as a So programming languages, yes, we're currently using PHP on the web application
Mm,
and Java, considering yung new projects
yes.
na may framework na Spring and
Mm-mm.
Hibernate. Yun lang.
So,
Perhaps clarification.
yes po.
Kasi yun nga, hindi naman ako masyadong ano sa programming. PHP and Java. So pwede silang mag-combine. Tama ba?
Um,
PHP and Java.
iba po kasi yung PHP, iba yung Java.
So,
Sige po. Sige po.
Okay, when we say, excuse me guys, nakikinig lang ako sa inyo eh. Ano lang ako eh. When we say allied agent, it means to say that we will be able to perform our database through this different platform. So for transaction processors like CICS and Microsoft transaction server, of course, kailangan ng databases. Sa web connectivity, of course, meron tayong connections ng
Yes
databases.
po.
Kapag sinasabi natin kasi programming languages, ito yung may mga built-in na database. Bawa, PHP, naka-built-in agad sa kanya may
Apo.
SQL. Si Java, pwede na rin natin yan sa open source na database. May mga built-in na
Apo.
database automatic. Kaya sinasabing allied agents. Okay?
So, yung project ko ngayon, programming language and um, network and software yung ginagamit namin. So, LMS web-based. Share ko lang. Wala lang. Malapit na tayo matapos. Um, hardware configuration. Sino po magbabasa? Konti na lang ito. Promise. Sige po.
Kaya ako basahin ko ulit. Hardware configuration. The hardware must be installed and set up properly for the DBMS to operate efficiently. Some questions in DBA should ask to assure an optimal hardware environment for the database applications. Number one is the computer hardware and capacity appropriate for the DBMS environment. In other words, does the DBMS vendor recommend this particular hardware implementation? Next is the computer firmware such as ROM, BIOS up to date. Has a sufficient amount of memory been installed for all of the system software to be installed, such as OS, DBMS, and other allied agents? Last, has an appropriate amount of disk storage space been allocated and configured for use by the DBMS?
This is storage and I/O. So, ano ba yung I/O na tinatawag? Ito yung input-output na tinatawag. So, pabasa po. Basa na naman. Sorry po.
okay.
Ah,
Disk, storage, and I/O. One of the biggest bottlenecks for database performance is the physical cost of performing I/O operations. Data resides on a disk, and a disk is a mechanical device. A consideration for optimizing disk access is to utilize solid state devices. A solid state device is actually computer memory that is configured to work like a disk drive. When when data is read from a solid state device, there is no physical component to the I/O operation. The data resides in memory and is transferred from memory to the DBMS and then to the requester.
Last, last slide na po. So, promise. So, meron po tayong components ng DBMS. So, meron po tayong 5. Um, hardware, software, um, data, procedure, and database access language. So, ano ba yung database access language? Anyone? Okay, that ends my presentation po.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay, thank
Rob.
you very much, Rock. Okay. To summarize the discussion of the database performance, no? If you are the database administrator or a database performance analyst, kasi sa Pilipinas, bibihira yung may database administrator, may database performance analyst, kadalasan DBA na lang, no? Chances are that you deal with performance-related issues regarding your database systems every day of the week. But you have ever stopped for a moment and try to define what you mean, you say database performance. Doing so, it can be worthwhile exercise if only to organize your thoughts on the matter. You need to think about it. Don't we need a firm definition of database performance before we can attempt to manage the performance of our databases? It can be useful to think about database performance using the familiar concepts, no? Or supply and demand. Users demand information from the database management system, and the DBMS supplies information to those requesting it. The rate at which the DBMS supplies the demand for information can be loosely thought as a database performance. But let's dive a little deeper. Kanina na-discuss na natin yung factors, no, that influence database performance. Sabi nga ni Raquel, workload, throughput, resources, optimization, and contention. Take note of it. This will be the 5 factors that influence database performance. Okay? Again, as what we mentioned earlier, that the workload is requested of the database or DBMS device, the demand. No? Siyempre, pag sinabi natin workload, this will be the DBMS demand. And it, of course, it is a combination of an online transactions, batch jobs, ad hoc queries, business intelligence queries, and analysis, utilities, system commands directed through the DBMS at any given time. A workload, of course, can fluctuate drastically from day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, and yes, even second to second. Sometimes, workload can be predicted. So, maybe, such as heavy month-end processing of payroll or very light access after 7 p.m. When most users have left for the day, but at other times, it is unpredictable. The overall workload can have a major impact on the database performance. Another thing, of course, is the throughput, no? Pag sinabi kasi natin throughput, it defines the overall capability of the computer to process data. It is composite of input-output speed, central processing unit speed, parallel capabilities of the machine, and the efficiency of operating system and system software. And of course, don't just base your throughput assumptions on hardware capacity figures. Para bang laging megahertz of Wintel or boxes, MSU and MIPS of for mainframes, no? Huwag ganon. And perhaps, you have installed hard or soft copying on your box, which can impact throughput. And don't forget about those specialty processor, like yung ZIIPS and ZAAPS. If you are a mainframe database administrator. The hardware and software tools at the disposal of the system are known the resources of the system. So example, include memory, such as the allocated of buffer pools of address spaces. This catch controllers and microcode. And the fourth defining element of database performance is optimization. Di ba? All types of systems can be optimized, but relational database systems are unique in the query optimization is primarily accomplished internal to the DBMS, ensuring that you provided up-to-date and accurate database statistics for the query optimizer is one of the utmost importance in achieving optimal SQL standard or query. We need to keep in mind that though that there are other factors that need to be optimized, like database parameters and system parameters and others, it is enable the relational optimizer to create the most efficient access paths. And there are optimization aspects that are outside the scope in control of the relational optimizer. To such efficient script coding, proper application designing, coding efficient utility options, and so on. Of course, when the demand of workload for a particular resource is high, contention can result. Because contention is the condition in which two or more components of the workload are attempting to use a single resource in the conflicting way. So for example, you have a dual updates. Okay, contention ng ano yan. Especially, you have a dual updates to the same piece of data. Okay? When one program tries to read data that is in the process of being changed by another, the DBMS must prohibit access until the modification is complete in order to ensure data integrity. Kaya di ba sinasabi, kapag nag-update ka ng database, see to it na walang gumagamit. Kasi magbabuffer lang yun, maghihintay hanggang matapos yung updating mo. Kung nagbabackup ka ng database mo, hindi rin ma-update yung mga bago. Kaya most commonly, anong oras nag-update? Kapag pang umaga, 8 to 5, kadalasan ang update 12 midnight. Kapag pang gabi naman kadalasan, kung 24/7, ang ginagawa nila diyan kapag Sunday, no? Saturday night ang updating. Pero kapag naka-cloud naman, automatic updated siya. Yun ang advantage sa contention, no? So, the bottom line here is understanding what database performance is a must and be a prerequisite for properly assuring the efficiency of your database environment. With a sound definition, of course, in hand, managing database performance becomes an achievable task. And that's it for the report of Miss Raquel. Thank you.
Doc Melo, pwede magtanong?
Yes po.
Doc, ano po ba yung normalization sa RDMS?
Ano daw?
Normalization po sa
Saan?
database po or in RDBMS?
Di ba yan, diniscuss natin dati yung one normalization F, 2NF, 3NF, and BCNF?
Opo.
Yan yung normalization is, design technique yan. Okay? Di ba pag sinabi natin database normalization, technique of organizing the data in the database. Pag sinabi natin normalization, a systematic approach of decomposing tables to eliminate data redundancy. Para maiwasan yung data redundancy and undesirable characteristics like insertion, update, deletions. Halimbawa, may kaaway ka sa office mo. Siyempre, pinakailaman yung database, no? Yung naka-normalize mo, nag-delete siya. May deletion anomalies. Ayun. So therefore, normalization is used for mainly two purposes actually. Number one, eliminating redundancy. Number two, ensuring data dependency makes sense like data is logically stored. Naka-sequence, maayos. Gano'n ang ibig sabihin.
Thank you, Doc.
Oo. Ano ba yung common problem sa kapag walang normalization? If a table is not properly normalized and have data redundancy, then it will not only eat up extra memory. Kasi imagine, may database sa accounting, may database sa payroll. Iba ang information ni reference sa payroll, iba ang information So redundant. Unlike kung naka-central server siya, tatawagin lang. Walang redundancy ng data. At pwede pang magkaroon ng iba ang information mo doon sa payroll, iba information mo sa HRD kapag hindi naka-normalize. Okay?
Thank you, Doc, for further clarification po. Thank you po.
Okay.
Doc,
Meron pa ba tayo sa sa advanced administration? May presenter pa, wala na.
si Rudal po sana kaso wala po siya.
So sinong mamaya sa sa system implementation?
Doc, ako po.
Kami ni Ma'am Lisa. Ay,
Okay.
Oo,
sorry po.
tama po. Si Perps Manila tsaka si Chris po. Tama po
Dalawa
siya.
po.
So ngayon waiting. So ibig sabihin maghihintay tayo ng alas 10.
Apa,
Yes, sir. Tulog pa
Sir
si Ma'am
Chris?
Lisa.
Sir Chris, kayo ang mag-aano ng Google or kami?
meron na po ako nagawa.
Para sa kanila mamaya?
Opo.
Pati na lang to, sir.
Okay,
Same link
sige.
na lang.
Opo, pwede din hindi.
Pwede naman, sir. Ito na lang. Yung same link na lang. Yung nasa GC,
Okay.
sir.
O, so babalik tayo ng 10 a.m.
Opo.
Tapos new recording na lang po.
Okay.
Doc Melo, Ginger po, merong nag-join, Reynaldo Bernabe.
Bago daw yun.
Yes, siya po
Bago
yung
po.
taga-Kalamba Delta. Si Ray po.
Oo.
Sige, kayang-kaya na nyo nang i-assign yan.
Oo,
Apo.
pa-assignan na lang sis Rax ng
Opo.
ng module.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, since you don't have any question, therefore, we again see you by 10 a.m.
Opo.
Doc, sa akin direct po doon sa StreamYard.
Okay.
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 Ngayon ka rin.
Yes po, pero parang mauna yata sila Miss Liza at Chris.
Okay.
Miss Liza.
Sige.
Okay po.
Okay, guys. See you by 10
Thank you,
a.m.
Rax.